Now we're talking to LaKenya Middlebrook, Director of Community Safety for the City of Knoxville. Day 2 on the job, is that right?
Day 2.
And you're still wearing 2 hats for the time being?
For the time being, it's a transition. And thankfully, when I came on as park director, one of the things that Mayor Kincannon asked me to do was to be a part of kind of the reimagining public safety and the internal work that we were doing. And as we were doing that internal work with, other members of the community empowerment team, with our law enforcement officers, with, fire and other community partners, obviously, during the course of last year, especially as we started to see increases in violence, violence prevention and violence interruption rose to the top of that, but also thinking about how we're thinking about public safety and community safety more broadly in our community. And so I was very humbled that she asked me to be a part of that work. So it's something that we've kind of been doing for a while. But now really thinking about formalizing it and solidifying it and really understanding where it lives and having somebody who's dedicated to thinking about these things every day is super important to the administration. So it's a transition, but like I said, it's work that we have been a part of and doing here at the city almost essentially since I came on board.
When you took over Park, when you headed up Park, I'm sure you were very excited and saw potential for what you might be able to do. How much more potential do you see in this new role?
I see this as being a great opportunity for our community as a whole. And one of the things that I often say to folks when we think about Park especially, a lot of times Park is something that we worked really hard to get in our community. It's been here for about 20 years and it's still evolving and developing and doing really great work. And we've been excited about the work that we've been able to do and are excited about the work that Park will continue to do. But Park is one tool, it's one resource. And a lot of times when you have to work really hard to get a tool, you want it to do everything, right? You want it to be like a Swiss Army knife, but it may just be a screwdriver. And so this, I think, position gives us the opportunity to build out more tools and have more resources that will best serve our community as we think about what we want for our residents, what safety looks like in our communities.
The number one question that I hear following the news of this new cabinet level position, the number one question that I hear is about the practicality of it. I mean, how in this new role can you contribute to tangible results, cutting down the number of deadly shootings in our city? How can this lead to tangible results?
Absolutely, and I think it's important for us to always keep in mind and realize that one person isn't going to change everything, right? If I had a magic wand that I could wave and we see violence completely dissipate in our community, I would have done that a long time ago, and I think so many of us would. But I think the important thing about this role is it gives us the opportunity to better connect with our community partners, to better connect city departments and services around public safety, around community safety, and understanding what role each of us has to play, to be a convener, to make sure that we are best resourcing our community partners and our city departments to avoid duplication of services, to make sure that the needs are being met where they need to be met. When we think about, especially around violence reduction in our community, it's really, a small number of folks in very targeted areas, and so to make sure that we're focusing resources into the right places and that we're thinking about responses that include, yes, our public safety offices like law enforcement, but also our community partners, also other city departments that can have a great impact. And so making sure that we're thinking about those things holistically to see the best and broadest impact.
You guys touched on that a little bit last week. KPD is one element into community safety.
Right.
This was sort of surprising to me because I hadn't thought of it before, but engineering and public works might be another factor. I mean, I guess talk to me about a typical day in your job, the phone calls you might be making, the solutions you might be brainstorming with other people.
Absolutely. So, it's a lot of conversation, a lot of strategic thinking and planning So it's everything from having conversations with folks right here in our city departments, whether that's the Office of Neighborhoods, to think about how we can best connect with some of our neighborhood organizations and neighborhood watches, to hear directly from them and engage them around how we can promote public safety and community safety. Conversations with law enforcement around, how we are addressing the needs of individuals, with other city departments, but especially with our community partners, and having, whether it's meetings with community organizations who are on the ground doing work to help them build capacity and think about how we can address these issues and how they can coordinate and collaborate with other entities, to one-on-one conversations with members of our communities and neighborhoods to hear directly from them what their needs are. So it's a lot of conversations that are happening, and collecting that information and putting it together in a way that's strategic and thoughtful, and then not just receiving information, but relaying that information back, right? So it doesn't really benefit everybody if I hear all of these things from all of these places and I'm the only person who holds this information. It's important for me to then look for opportunities to connect departments and individuals and organizations for best collaboration.
So there's a ton of programs, a ton of people in this city that I've had a chance to interview who want to see this safe, inclusive city on a hill. That's the only thing I can think of to say.
Down in the valley.
Down in the valley, that's better. Yeah, that's more accurate. But so you have all these organizations and nonprofits and city leaders, county leaders who all have a shared goal, but it almost seems that you see your position as a way to link all of those resources together.
Yeah, and I think it's the opportunity to help focus that work, right, and really be thoughtful and intentional in what the work is, and understanding what role everyone has to play. And especially as we think about, when we think more specifically about violence reduction and violence interruption work, that's very specific work that, engages a very specific population and is very targeted, but it also relies on broader relationships with community partners and broader resources, right? So if we're able to connect with folks to stop an incident, that may be about to happen, it's important to be able to then connect them to some longer term services. So it's really, really important for us to all understand kind of what our lanes are, and how each of those lanes kind of helps to get us to where we're trying to go.
It almost sounds like you see your role as more of preventative than reactionary. It's less about policing the crime, but trying to get to the root causes of the crime.
Yes, I think that's such a critical approach, and one of the things that we are really focused on from our office's perspective is kind of a public health approach to violence prevention, right? So law enforcement has a role to play, but it's really, really important for us to address some of those root cause issues, to reach people where they are, to hopefully stop an incident before it happens, to think about ways that we can connect with people outside of the criminal system to reduce violence in our community and improve public safety as a whole.
I've perhaps since I've been here, I've heard about this Detroit and Knoxville kind of crime connection, or they're almost like a link between those two cities. And I guess if the source of some of our issues are, being outsourced or coming from another area, can anything be done on that front?
I think, having strong communities, having strong and solid networks within our communities is always critical, and it makes it more challenging and more difficult for folks who may not be a part of our community to come in and create turbulence and wreak havoc and cause devastation and trauma within our communities if our communities feel connected and strong and empowered, and it may not be. One of the things that's important for us to realize is that we may not be able to stop every single incident, but it's important for us to try every single time. And so, and this is not something that is specific to Knoxville. We talk to our neighbors in Memphis and Chattanooga and Nashville, and all of them, see similar instances of having folks who are not a part of their community, who are coming through the community for various reasons that may be drivers of some of the violence. But again, it's super important to build strong communities and connections within the members of our own community to try to decrease the impact of those who are not from our community.
And I know I've already brought up that number 30 before, but that's 30 so far.
Yes.
And obviously a grim number, and we're seeing it nationally too. Have you just increased the pressure in your professional life? Like, do you feel the pressure now when you come into work? Like, got to make a difference today. Got to do something to, make this part of the city or make this situation better for those living in that area?
I feel a sense of responsibility. I'm a member of this community. I was born here. I was the first person in my family to be born in Knoxville, but I grew up here, having been a violence-impacted person myself. And lost friends and classmates to violence, had family members who be injured by gun violence, and even have had family members who have experienced incarceration because of their alleged involvement in violence. And so these are things that I have felt and experienced personally, and I feel a sense of responsibility to use any talent, any skill, any resource that I have to serve the community that I live in and that's invested so much in me.
And you're not a volunteer. I mean, you are part of the mayor's cabinet. You're
Yes.
at the table, having these conversations. Have you found that this new role has been a welcome one with the rest of the team?
Yes, I've gotten a lot of support and encouragement from the mayor's team, who've been very welcoming and encouraging and offering to help in any way they can. I think we all feel this. We all feel a sense of responsibility, and it's been really motivating for me to hear from so many other members of not only just cabinet level, but department heads and city staff at all levels, that they are eager to help and support and are excited that we're taking this step to develop this new department in the city.
And I wanted to talk about your qualifications a little bit, because it's a wide-ranging career so far. Law.
Yes.
I didn't know that you ran the Phyllis Wheatley Center until recently.
Yeah.
I mean, political, obviously we've seen your face in political arenas and political venues. And then park. I'm sure I'm missing something, but I guess will you kind of walk me through some of your experiences and why you feel like this job is a good fit?
Yeah, I think I have been very fortunate in my life to have some really wonderful opportunities and experiences, and everything from working directly with young people and families at the Phyllis Wheatley YWCA, doing programming for middle schoolers and elementary school kids and senior citizens even, and really having an opportunity to serve the community there, to my law practice, which focused a lot on working with young people also and families in crisis, and really kind of helping to navigate with folks some of the most challenging experiences of their life. And in the political arena, to be able to see how policy is developed and formed, and the importance of relationships and getting things done. And then of course with Park, the opportunity to engage community and hopefully elevate community voices and how our community is policed, and what law enforcement can look like in our community, and centering the voices of folks in the neighborhoods and our residents who are most impacted with that. And so I think that having kind of that range of experience of that, kind of direct community engagement and involvement in those personal relationships, and understanding, how to build relationships and the importance of being intentional and strategic will really serve me well in this position.
And based on where things are just right now, I mean, how would you evaluate, I guess, KPD overall?
Yeah.
Needs improvement, satisfactory? I guess we can go back to grade school, but do you have big ideas for KPD?
I think that our law enforcement agencies work hard every single day. They show up and they do a job that, most people in the community would not dare to do, and we are grateful and appreciative of that. I think we're always striving to be our best. We're always looking for best practices. We're always looking for best opportunities, and we're always looking for opportunities to build trust. And we can be honest and say that there have been some things that have happened that have not served to build that trust, but it's really about being intentional and being open and honest and transparent. And my hope is that in this new position, having the opportunity to kind of work more directly with Chief Thomas, and even with Chief Sharp at the fire department and our public safety agencies, that we can really think intentionally about how we strengthen those relationships, how we build that trust, and how we assure accountability.
It's an interesting concept. I suppose a civilian runs the city, but having a civilian at the table, kind of on equal footing as our police chief, our fire chief. I mean, it's an opportunity to maybe say some things you were thinking as the park director. You can say them now. You're
Yeah,
in the room.
you know, and the thing with park, you know, there has to be, because park is a civilian oversight body, and it's super important for there to be kind of that sense of independence, so that there has to be some level of separation. So while as park director, I do have the opportunity to engage with Chief Thomas specifically and other members of command staff around particular issues and talk about policies and procedures, I think that this opens the door for broader conversations and kind of maybe some more high-level conversations and front-end conversations that can happen. And I think that it's critical and an important step for our community to have that civilian perspective, that community member perspective at the table at the front end of decisions, so that we're always centering the voices of those we serve.
Well, my last question, you guys mentioned last week that you have undergone some what have you undergone? Some different like trainings, and you've gone to some best practices. You can tell me this, but I'm trying to read off a piece of paper. But I'm curious to know, like, can you give specific examples of like violence interruption programs and initiatives that have worked well in other places that you'd like to implement here?
Yeah, so we have had the opportunity, you know, we've spent a lot of time looking at violence reduction strategies and kind of thinking about what can work well here in Knoxville, and so we're really excited to begin to explore implementation of some of those. Some of them are kind of longer term strategies that will require a little more institutional building to be able to get off the ground, but we were able just a few weeks ago, 3 members of the community empowerment team, myself, Dr. Charles Lomax and Kathy Mack, were able to go over to Memphis to do some observation of training of violence interruption programs, which are really ground level interventionists who are well trained, well resourced, you know, paraprofessionals who are members of the community and connected strongly to the community, who are on the ground every day, engaging with members of the community, talking to folks, you know, helping to de-escalate situations, helping to mediate situations, and try to interrupt the cycle of violence before incidents start. And so to really be able to see you know, that work in process and begin to understand the connection between the community partners who do that work and the city partners who help facilitate and resource that work, and really understand some of the things that they're doing there was really insightful. And we're actually planning to go up here next week, I believe, to Louisville to do some site visits with similar programs to see how these interruption strategies are working. And we've seen these things do really well, you know, in cities across the country, you know, from LA and Oakland to Chicago and you know, Baltimore and Boston. A lot of folks are familiar with the Boston ceasefire model. You know, they're doing the work in Memphis and are seeing some good results. And so we're excited to begin to hopefully build some capacity for folks in our community to do that direct on the ground work. We've also been exploring and looking at some hospital-based intervention strategies. So while we're in Louisville, we'll be having some meetings with the folks who do their hospital-based intervention strategies. And we're already building some relationships with some of our medical partners here to begin to think about what that might look like here in our community, which is also having folks from the community who are engaged in intervening if there's an unfortunate incident where someone is injured by gunfire or some other means, to engage them and make sure that they have the resources and supports that they need and can help to de-escalate some situations. So those are a few of the immediate strategies that we're working on, and are, you know, like I said, getting training around and going to do site visits on, so that we can begin to hopefully implement some of those strategies here locally.
Nice. So interrupt, prevent, more transparency.
Yes.
Is that
And
enough,
collaboration. Can't forget collaborate.
We got to come up with an acronym. I know you're leaving Park, but we need another
We need an acronym. Okay, we'll work on it.
Just for me. You know. All right. Is there anything you wanted to add?
I think we covered everything. Did I miss anything?
Did I leave anything out?
No, I mean,